Vincent Kosuga was born in Pine Island, New York on January 17, 1915. 43 years later, on August 28, 1958, an act would be passed which banned the trading of onion futures, and Vincent Kosuga with his partner would be the ones solely responsible. In his home state of New York, he owned a 5,000-acre farm where he grew onions, celery, and lettuce. He was successful with this, and some of his customers included the U.S. Army and Campbell's Soup. After owning the farm for several years, he then began to trade futures on wheat. Some of you may be wondering what a future is, so here is a short explanation. A future is simply the agreement to buy or sell a commodity at a specific price and a specific date in the future. These are often used by businesses to reliably pay a specific price for something that they will always be needing, rather than relying on fluctuations of that price at any given time. It is also often used by investors who have no plan to actually buy or sell those commodities, but rather think the value of a commodity will change and benefit them. Vincent Kosuga traded futures specifically on wheat, but failed terribly, nearly going bankrupt in the process, and instead returned to farming at his wife's request. However, this particular man could not resist coming back to the futures market, and he had a plan. The CME, also known as the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, is the largest agricultural exchange in the world, and this is where Vincent Kosuga began to trade onion futures. He was so successful in this, he bought his brokers a new Buick every year, and one of his brokers later became the chairman of that same mercantile exchange. But Vincent Kosuga was not simply getting lucky or playing fair. In his career, he once bribed a weather bureau to issue a frost warning, which would increase the value of his futures, and it was issued, but the temperature never dropped below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. This was only the beginning of his shady trading. In 1955, Kosuga and his new partner Sam Siegel decided to corner the onions market. He and his partner bought so many onions and onion futures that they controlled 98% of all the available onions in Chicago. In late 1955, the two had over 30 million pounds of onions, all stored in Chicago. Then, they started to go around convincing onion farmers to purchase those same onions, or they threatened that they would flood the market with them. They said that they would keep them at hold as long as they paid, which would have kept the price stable. However, as the farmers began buying those onions, the duo purchased short positions in many onions contracts, where you're selling the commodity rather than buying it. Then, as the onions had started to spoil, they sent the onions to be refurbished. This required them to be shipped outside of Chicago, and these shipments of onions made onion future traders think that there was too much of a supply of onions, which drove the price down. In March of 1956, Kosuga and Siegel had reduced the price of onions from $2.75 a bag to 10 cents a bag. At one point, the bags were worth more than the onions inside. These massive amounts of onions transported to Chicago caused onion shortages around the United States between 55 and 56, and many onion farmers went bankrupt. But Kosuga and Siegel didn't worry about that because they made millions upon millions of dollars from shorting these onion contracts. So, Kosuga and Siegel made this money with estimates wildly varying as to the amount, but somewhere in the tens of millions of dollars. But you came here for the title, which says that they got trading onions banned. Well, in the aftermath, many farmers who paid to have their onions disposed of when they dropped in value demanded something to be done. This wild change in prices got the Commodity Exchange Authority involved, which regulated trading commodities before it was replaced many years later. The Commodity Exchange Authority launched an investigation and held hearings on the crash. Kosuga testified in front of Congress and defended what he did. The Commodity Exchange Authority decided that because onions were perishable, it was vulnerable to price swings. So Gerald Ford, a congressman at the time, sponsored the Onion Futures Act, which banned all future trading on onions forever. It was passed in 1958, and a lawsuit from the Chicago Mercantile Exchange failed to change it.